we have our unit test modified to hopefully account for the wrapping of the profiles as we add the entries and go past the maximum number of frames. Hopefully we got this correct. I'm not too concerned about that because if there's an error here, it will show itself when we try to make this code work, and then we'll kind of work these two code files together, the actual profiler and its accompanying tests, and until we feel like yes, they're both correct, yes, they're both turning green. So that's another benefit of unit testing for sure. Let's see here. I want to go through some examples here. Right now, the test we're trying to validate writes out 8 frames. Okay, well we know that we can only store 5. So here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our end result data out to the file should look like this. But the actual RAM, we can only store 5 frames at a time. So let's say this blue here marks the number of frames we can store because I'm only allowed to keep up to 5 frames. Well, when I write 15, 16, 17, well, where's that going to go in RAM? Okay, well, like I said, we're going to wrap around. So this will be 15, 16, 17. And the 18, 19, 20, the 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, like so. So let me actually change the data to illustrate that. These last 3 frames that we're writing will overwrite the previous frames as we chase our tail like a dog, so to say. Well, that's cool, but we actually want to write this out when we open up our file and write. Okay, so if you can see, I don't want to write 15, 16, 17. I want to start at 9. Well, the 9's right here. So this will be our first frame to write and our second frame to write. Third, fourth, and fifth frame to write in that order. And so we basically need to change the logic where we write the frames out right here in the profiler shutdown function to do just that. So I think what I would like to set up with our frames, instead of doing frame here, I think I want to do a start index and an end index. So unsigned int start index, unsigned int end index. And the start index, in this case, we want to start here, and then we want to go here, and then we'll wrap around and go all the way to here, which is where the end index should be. So can you think of the math we need to do to figure out what the appropriate start index should be and also what the appropriate end index should be? Pause the video and think about that. Let me bring this back up. First of all, what do we know? Well, we keep a current frame index. The profiler does. If you remember, we have frame index here, which we just send round and round and round. And we never decrement it. We just mod it. Remember, we did I think we did a modulo operation right here to bring it down to where it should be, even if it runs off the end of the array, to essentially make it circle. So we could use that with our start index and our end index. And our end index, we basically want the current frame that we're working on, or the frame that we just completed. We want that frame to be our end index. And then our start index should be the frame immediately after that. All right, I know that sounds kind of weird, but basically in RAM we want end index to be our current frame index. All right, frame index. If this is being used appropriately, frame index is right here, and so that will be our end index, and then start index will be right here. So I'm actually going to go. Let's do end index first. End index will be our current frame index modded by our max frame samples. And then I think I've actually typed this expression before. In fact, I showed it to you not long ago. It's right here. And okay, we'll fix that in a minute. I don't like, if I can reduce the number of redundant the amount of redundant code, I will. Start index will be our end index plus 1. All right, so end index is here. Start index will be end index plus 1. Well, that's great, but what if our end index is here? Well, then our start index needs to go right here. How can we account for that? Well, it's pretty straightforward. It's just another modulo max frame samples like that. So now we have a start index, we have an end index, And so instead of doing this for loop like this, I'm going to Control-Shift-L, delete this line, and then say while start index is not equal to EndIndex. Okay, as long as start index will start here, and then it'll go here, then it'll go here, and then it will go here. And while we're not equal to the same one, well, we want to do this one too, don't we? Don't we want to do this one too? Yeah, but okay, well, let's do a less than then. Let's do a less than like that. Well, while start index is less than, well, I can't do a less than because start index, if we've wrapped, start index will most likely be greater than an end index. Oh, the headaches. Oh, the headaches. What are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you what we do. I'm going to put a not equals here. While start index is not equal to end index, yes, that's going to eliminate the last frame. We'll fix that in a minute. Then, for instance, we want to write out sample sub start index. Okay, and like so. And I think we will probably be safe. Let's do our start index plus plus like that. Okay, I could actually make this a for loop, and maybe I will. You know, put nothing there. And then start index plus plus. That might be a little bit more conducive to what we're doing here. Our initialization is special, so I'm not going to initialize it right here. Even though I could, it would get ugly to syntactically put it there. So for while start index not equal to end index, go write out the categories in that frame, and then let's go to the next frame. Well, there's a problem with this update. Start index will go here, and then it will go here, and then it's going to run off the end. We need to wrap it back around to here. Do you feel another modulo operation coming on? So we're going to say start index actually gets start index plus 1 modulo max frame samples. All right. Well, this for loop's getting hideous. I'm going to go back to a while loop. All right. That for loop's not really buying me anything. A for loop, a while loop, roughly the same thing. Just depends on where you write your updates and stuff like that. I could actually talk on for a couple minutes about the difference between a for loop and a while loop, but semantically they can, and in this case are doing the same thing. So update the start index plus 1, but wrap around if we're past the max frame samples. So that should take us around all the way until we get to the last frame. We want to write out the last frame, don't we? We want to write out the frame that we're currently on. And this actually has to do with the number of actual frames. We need to consider this logic we wrote up here to account for the number of actual frames. But before we do that, I want to point something out here that'll save us a lot of headache in the very near future. This logic that we've written right here is just fine in this scenario, but what if we haven't wrapped around? Okay, if we haven't wrapped around, like, for example, here I actually have it here kind of down here at the bottom. You can see it hiding. Let me bring this up here. If we haven't wrapped around, say we've only done 3 frames, like this. Well, we're going to say start index is end index plus 1 way out here. We're going to start writing out here and data we haven't even written to, and yeah, that doesn't, what a headache. What a headache. So if we've wrapped around, we need a certain amount of logic. If we haven't wrapped around, it's pretty straightforward. But either way, we need to consider that. So I'm going to make a helper function to determine whether or not we are wrapped. Let me go here and say bool wrapped const function helper down here. Bool profiler wrapped const. All right, and this should be pretty straightforward. We need to return. How do we tell if we're wrapped around or not? Can you think of how we would detect that? It's pretty straightforward the way we've set up our logic. We have the frame index, we have the max frame samples, and if this is equal to or has gone past this, then we know we have wrapped. All right, so return frame index greater than or equal to max frame, come on, max frame samples, like that. And also remember we have that special case, the frame index not equal to -1. All right, because when we haven't written anything out to the file, or written anything, if we haven't sampled, saved, called new profile, that kind of thing, then frame index is just parked at -1. So hopefully you're catching how picky I'm being here. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. Put a semicolon here. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do this. If wrapped, then we're going to do this logic. Else, we're going to do this logic. We'll get StartIndex and EndIndex. I'm going to declare them up here, but assign them later. Copy that. Paste that right here. Alt drag to kind of clean this up a little bit. And then if we're wrapped, then yes, I want to do this interesting logic that I'm doing right here, without the semicolons, obviously. Else, StartIndex, we get 0. EndIndex, we'll get our number of actual frames. That's similar to what we had before, I believe. Yeah, that's true. Okay, and then while this one's easy, StartIndex plus while StartIndex is less than EndIndex, then we want to write out the frame, and this is the logic to write out the frame. I'll put that right there. Copy paste because that's what good programmers do. Let me highlight this, Control KF. Make sure we get our indentation here because Jamie's not going to put curly braces, even though I probably should. I might. And then, well, this logic's not going to work. This logic, you know what? I have to add curly braces. StartIndex plus plus. All right, we just need to go through 0, 1, 2, and stop, just like a regular loop. Right? So we do the plus plus here. But in the case up here, we're going to get this interesting start and end scenario. And so we need to do this special update. Copy that. Paste that right here. So this logic here, this is kind of interesting how that works, huh? We need to write out the frame samples right here. Okay, well that's what this is doing. Copy, paste. Oh, doesn't that hurt to copy and paste? That should. I think we're done with this. I've kind of trashed this up. We don't need this anymore. Right, I'm going to delete this whole thing down here and zoom out a little bit. So you can see, hey, if we've wrapped, we need to take into some special considerations how we manage the start index and end index and update that accordingly. But if we haven't wrapped, it's pretty straightforward, just roll forward. Okay, but I don't like the fact that I've copied and pasted this code. So in true form, let's do a refactoring by going to the header file here and make another little helper function. I'm going to call it void write frame unsigned int frame number. And that's const as well, because all it will do is read the current data and send it out to a file. It's not actually going to update any data members of the file. So let's write that. Now generally I'd put helpers down here, but I'm going to keep it right here by the shutdown. In fact, the shutdown's actually kind of pathetic, because it's like, holy crap, you gotta do all this to shut down? Really? I'm gonna go even more extreme. Let's take all this code out, Control X, and zoom in a little bit. I'm gonna say write data. So now I can group all my file logic kind of together as well. Void write data, and that's gonna be const. Should be good. And then write data we'll do down here. So void profiler write data const. Alright, there's all the code we had before. And then I wanted to pull this and this out to a what I call it, write frame function. So now I can nice and group that close to my writing logic. And I think the function names actually help to have with readability. So void profiler, actually Control V, profiler, like so, and then write frame is really this logic, is it not? So I can paste that down there, Control KF, and I can say write frame StartIndex, then StartIndex plus plus. Well, come on. This is just, you'll probably be screaming at me when I do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Write that frame, and then right here, what frame are we writing? We're writing out the StartIndex frame. So right here I can say write frame StartIndex. But I need a while loop, don't I? I need a while loop. Where did my while loop go? I thought I had a while loop. Something's fishy. I probably deleted it in all that code thrashing I was doing. While start index is not equal to EndIndex. Control KF. So run the start index up to the end index, wrap around if necessary, write the frame that the start index is currently at. And we also need to write, once we've written all that, that will write out, like I said earlier, this frame, this frame, this frame, and this frame, but it will not write out this frame, which we want, unless it's not all the way filled. But let's ignore that. Okay, right here, remember I said they're writing out a partial frame, but say they did do a 23. Let's ignore that, and right here at the end we'll say write frame start index. That will grab that last one. So it's a good thing we made this write frame helper function, because we're calling it here, here, and here. And I hope I'm feeling good about what's going on. Actually, I'm not, especially since I'm on camera. I think this is a good place to stop and rest and think about it and come back in the next video.